Hey, everybody. It's good to see you tonight, Saturday evening, a little after 7 o'clock. I just wanted to just share something really quick with you this evening. Don't have a lot for you, but we'll be in Gideon, talking about Gideon again. We're going to be in Judges chapter number 8 tonight, the first 3 verses. But before I jump into the actual scripture, just wanted to remind everybody that we're going to have some birthdays coming up here. Amy White is going to be celebrating her birthday on the 21st, and Dan Dodd is going to be celebrating his birthday on the 24th. So make sure that you wish them both a happy birthday this week. And again, keep praying for our teachers. Pray for all the work that they're doing. Pray for our students. They obviously just extended the closures here for schools. So it means a lot more work for everybody. But just keep everybody in your prayers and reach out and encourage every opportunity you get. I know it can be frustrating at times, but this is a great opportunity for us to encourage one another, kind of like we talked about last week. All right, this week I want to I want to share something it's really small, but I wanted to not just glaze over it. I wanted to share it with you, and I think it'll help you a little bit. But things are getting kind of goofy right now. I mean, we're all locked down, right? And not all of us. There's some people who are still out working, and it's just a weird time, right? And I don't know about you, but I think that I think there's a great opportunity for a lot of things to go south in our homes while we're in this predicament. And what I mean by that is, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be some troubles. There's going to be obviously some happy time and some joy. I will say I've been talking to some of you, and it's really cool to see how the Lord's using this time to knit our families' hearts closer. And I think that's a good thing. But as we'll see in just a minute, after every victory, sometimes there's an opportunity for problems to come along. And jealousy is one of those things that it's that nasty green-eyed monster that we talk about, and it's one of those emotions that we have that can sometimes get us into trouble. And it's interesting. I want to show you. There's a situation that involved jealousy in Judges 8, and Gideon handles it in a really cool way. And jealousy it happens, especially these days where you think about it, you got essential workers who are going to work. And they're at work and they're thinking to themselves, man, all these people who are getting to stay home, they're getting a vacation, and they get a little bit, upset about that. And then there's people who are stuck at home and they're thinking to themselves, man, I really wish I could be out working. And they envy the essential workers who are allowed to go out and do their jobs. Sometimes we get on social media, especially right now, and we think, man, that person has it so much better than I do. Or, and meanwhile, that person who is, you're looking at, admiring, you're envying, they would probably do the same if they looked at your social media posts. And, we worry about, I wish I had a better marriage or better kids or a better spouse. And, we get a little bit jealous and our mind kind of runs away with us a little bit. And that's why we have to really be careful about our thought life in this situation that we're in, because it's an opportunity, I think, for the devil to really just jump on board and attack us. But jealousy is one of those awful things that happens in our hearts at times, and it can cause some real problems. Let me just real quick, Gideon, we left off last week with the whole, it was before the Midianites were about to be dealt with by God. And I'm going to skip all we started in chapter 6. I'm going to skip through chapter 7. You guys are very familiar with the story. God basically equips Gideon with 300 men who basically, through supernatural ways, they have pitchers with candles in them and great shouting voices. They terrify the Midianite camp, and the Midianites end up basically self-destructing and destroying themselves, and God comes along and cleans up the mess. So Gideon he routs the Midianite and Amalekite armies. They flee, and while they're being just in full-on retreat mode, they're running away from Gideon and the children of Israel. Gideon stops, and if you look at chapter number 8 with me, look at verse number, hold on a second, I don't have it pulled up myself. Chapter 8, look at verse number 1. All right. It says here, and the men of Ephraim, okay, so this is one of our major characters here. The men of Ephraim said unto Gideon, why hast thou served us thus, that thou called us not when thou wentest to fight with the Midianites? And they did chide with him sharply. Now, what we're seeing here is we've got the tribe of Ephraim. Okay, they were asked. If you look at chapter number 7, they were called to basically be the cleanup crew for this fight. I mean, they were going to just do a very important job. They were going to help, clear the remnant of the, the enemy army. Good grief, I can't think tonight. For some reason, they are now confronting Gideon. Well, we know the reason. They're jealous, and they're upset with him because they didn't get called to start the battle. Okay, they were called to finish the fight. And they are, obviously, they've talked about it. They've had a little bit of a minute or two to, the troops have been, chatting about it. And they are mad now because we didn't get called to fight the fight, right? We got called after the fact. Now, it seems kind of silly. It seems kind of like, well, why in the world would they get mad about that? But that's what it is. I mean, that's what jealousy is. I mean, jealousy can be very childish. It can be very prideful. It can be foolish. And that's what's going on here. These guys are clearly upset. Their feelings are hurt. Why didn't we get chosen to do this? And I want you to understand something. There's no spiritual thing attached to this. It's not like they had done something wrong and God didn't want to use them in the battle. It's not like he was putting them on a shelf or anything like that. They just had a specific job to do, and they weren't happy with what they were asked to do. They wanted to do something different. I think we've all been there. I think we've all been in that position in our life. And so they go to the boss and they basically get upset and they tried with him and they say, why didn't you ask us to fight alongside of you? Look what Gideon does. Look at his response. Verse number 2. And he said unto them, what have I done now in comparison of you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? I can't say that word. Abiezer. So that, by the way, that Abiezer, that is Gideon's people. That's his family. And I'll explain what that meaning means in just a second here. But he says, what have I done now in comparison of you? And what he is doing here, what Gideon is saying is this. He is very humbly bringing himself down a peg and saying, I'm no better than you. I'm no different than you guys. We're all in the same team here. We're working towards the same goal. And when he says that next statement in verse number 2, he says, is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of, his home people? What he's actually saying here is that, yes, we've got to fight first. We did get to fight first, but we didn't fight the best. And he continues on in verse number 3, and he says, God hath delivered into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeb, and what I was able to do in comparison of you. And what was I able to do in comparison of you? And he's basically saying to them, he goes, look, guys, you had an important job, and God gave you an important responsibility. And, who am I compared to you? I'm nobody. And it says here in verse number 3, then their anger was abated toward him when he had said that. I want you to see, this is one of those things that would be very easy for us to glide right over it and to skip it and not see it. But you got to understand that Gideon at this point, he is exhausted. They just got done fighting the Midianites. He's been through the battle. He's experienced this wonderful victory, this awesome victory that only God could do. And now he's pursuing the Midianites and the Amalekites, is my understanding. And he's getting stopped by a bunch of guys who are bent out of shape because they felt they should have been treated a little bit differently. And he's exhausted at this point. He's exhausted. And you're going to see as you continue to read chapter 8, just how exhausted he and his men are. And I'm telling you, that's when the devil strikes. That's when the problems come along. And I can't help but think of all of the poor essential workers and the teachers and, the people who are out there doing their job right now. And by the way, when I say that, I'm talking about the mom who's at home taking care of all the kids and being a teacher too, and maintaining the home and all the stuff that everybody's doing right now. That's very different. It's very unusual from what our normal routines are. And we're tired. We're exhausted because we've got all this stress and pressure from all this junk that's going on in our society and our world right now. We've got the news berating us with goofy information. You get on social media and you swear like civil war is going to break out any minute. And you see people who are supposed to be Christians acting like monsters at times. And then, you're exhausted. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I mean, it's exhausting. And I'm not even working. I'm not working as hard as you guys are. And I'll tell you right now, that's when the devil fights. That's when he comes at you. And that's when, we are not at our best. And I'm telling you right now, Ephraim is not, at least from the information I'm given in these few verses, they are not some awful group of individuals, okay? They were doing what God asked them to do, but they're tired too, and they got worn out. And that's when this nasty green-eyed monster rears its ugly head. And I'll tell you right now, I'm proud of the way that Gideon handles it. And we can learn from this. Gideon, instead of fighting back, instead of retaliating and fighting that green-eyed monster, he instead chose to soothe the savage beast. He used kind words. He humbled himself. And by the way, we know from the previous chapters, from his encounter with the angel of the Lord, we know that Gideon is a humble man. We know that he is. He does not think more highly of himself than he ought to. And he handled this situation because of his humility the right way. He just looked at these guys and was like, guys, our fight is not with one another. By the way, your fight is not with your spouse. It is not with your kids. It is not with your fellow church member. It is not with your government. Okay, your fight is with the devil, and that's the biggest war that you're ever going to face in this world, and against your own flesh. That's what you need to fight. And I'll tell you right now, we have to resist that temptation to fight back, just like Gideon did. You will not win. How will you not win? Instead, what you're going to do is the only way to win that fight is to humiliate your opponent. Think about it. The only way to fight the fight of jealousy and win is to humiliate the other person, to make them feel like idiots, to make them feel like they're this big. And I'm telling you, you're not going to win in that fight. You're not going to win in that fight. You're going to have to humiliate them and prove them wrong in order for them. And I'll be honest with you, they're not going to back off. They're not going to sit there and say, "Oh, you're right, I'm wrong." They're not going to do that. They're going to fight back. And that conflict. Can you imagine what would have happened if Gideon had stopped and waged war with his own fellow tribe of the Ephraim instead of going after the Midianites? That would have been a disaster. That's not what we should be doing. We should be doing the humble thing like Gideon did and be humble. Don't fight that green-eyed monster. You will not win. I hope this encourages you. I was just reading through this. I wasn't sure what I was going to do this week. There's a bunch of other stuff in the rest of this chapter that I want to share with you that's really cool. I'm going to do that, Lord willing, maybe either next week or some other time. But I will share that with you because there's more. I'm stuck in this chapter in this book. I love Gideon's story, and I've just been really enjoying the study. But this is good, and I don't want you to forget this. But let's try some humility today in our own homes. I know there's a lot of temptation right now to be angry and to be upset about our circumstances and about what's going on. But let's try something else instead. Let's just trust God. The lesson here that God was trying to teach the people was his sovereignty. In other words, that God's in charge, right? It's kind of what's going on today too, isn't it? Think about it. Who's in charge? Is it me? No. Is it the governor? No. Is it the president? Absolutely not. Who? Is it you? Are you in charge? I hope not. I mean, come on. God's in charge, right? So let's just trust him. Let's not allow this green-eyed monster to come into our hearts and ruin an opportunity to grow closer to our families and to maybe just push on and fight, even though we don't want to right now. And there's going to be some really cool stuff in chapter 8 about that I want to share with you next week about just pushing on and fighting. Okay. I love you. I'm praying for you. If you need me, I'm here. I hope you guys are having a great week. Remember, fight the green-eyed monster with humility, not with rage.